comes Hurst. He's got some fiddler on the pitch. They think it's all over. It is now. It's four.
England are world champions. The country that gave football to the world had finally conquered it. But that was the last time. After that, every tournament began the same way. Expectation, a good side, a chance. Yet more often than not, it ended the same way too. A single moment, a decision, a game that turned. And over time, those moments started to add up. This is the story of England's long hurt, the hope that kept returning, and the pain that never quite left. In the January of 2006, shortly after the FA announced that Sven-Göran would leave following the World Cup, they launched a very public pursuit of Luis Felipe Scolari. The Brazilian had knocked out England in the 2002 World Cup and again with Portugal in the 2004 Euros. Yet Scolari turned the job down, uneasy about the English media and the language barrier, and the FA's insistence on an answer before the tournament had even begun. The FA turned to an English solution. Steve McLaren, Eriksson's assistant, had interviewed well and was given the job. He came with a solid reputation. He had won the League Cup with Middlesbrough and had taken them all the way to the UEFA Cup final. But doubts remained. Many wondered whether he had the personality and the authority to lead the national team at the highest level. And some already felt he was overly confident in his own abilities. And England were eliminated once again by Scolari's Portugal in the 2006 World Cup. And as Sven gave his farewell speech to the players, McLaren then addressed the team himself. He thanked Eriksson for his work and added that he would invite him to the final in 2 years' time. Sven later called the remark highly inappropriate. McLaren, though, was full of self-belief. The media, well aware he was not the first choice, quickly dubbed him second choice Steve. David Beckham stepped down as captain.
It has been an honour and a privilege to have captained our country, and I want to stress that I wish to continue to play for England and look forward to helping both the new captain and Steve McLaren in any way I can.
McLaren handed the armband to John Terry. Then, in his first squad announcement, he left out Beckham, as well as Sol Campbell. I spoke to David, McLaren said, and I told him I was planning for the future, to change things and go in a different direction, though I would never close the door. The Euro 2008 qualifying placed England in a difficult group with Russia and Croatia, but they were still expected to top it comfortably. They started with 2 wins, but then the problems quickly surfaced. Disappointing goalless draw at home to Macedonia at Old Trafford was then followed by a trip to Zagreb. McLaren switched to a back three, and England looked static and lethargic, and Croatia took the lead.
In by Niko Kovac. It's Eduardo, it's in! England are behind in Zagreb.
And then an infamous back pass by Gary Neville sealed England's fate.
Oh my goodness! Oh! Have you ever seen anything like that? England are 2-0 down.
A 0-0 draw away to Israel came next, and although they eventually beat Andorra away, fans had already turned against McLaren.
There's a great determination now to prove a lot of people wrong. And gentlemen, if you want to write whatever you want to write, you can write it, because that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Then, after 6 long years of taking the national team on the road, playing at club grounds up and down the country in what many called England on tour, the new Wembley Stadium was finally ready. It was a big moment for English football.
Good evening, welcome to the first full international at the new Wembley. We've got a full house on a summer's evening and it's England versus Brazil. He was never going to miss this one, was he?
McLaren recalled David Beckham, and his trademark free kick was headed home by John Terry for the very first England goal under the new arch. Brazil, however, equalised in the 90th minute, but the night carried a real sense of occasion and the fresh hope. And Beckham remained in the side, and in the next game delivered 2 assists in a 3-0 win over Estonia. England then picked up solid home wins against Israel and Russia. A victory away in Moscow would have virtually guaranteed qualification.
And here's Rooney! Oh, what a goal! Wayne Rooney has conceded the penalty. It was outside the penalty area, and England are behind in a game they must not lose.
That left Russia just 2 points behind with a game in hand. Their fate was in their own hands. But then Russia slipped up, losing 2-1 away to Israel, and suddenly England were back in control. All they needed was a single point at home against Croatia at Wembley. The squad, however, was badly hit by injuries. Wayne Rooney and Michael Owen were unavailable up front, and the entire first choice back four, Gary Neville, Rio Ferdinand, John Terry and Ashley Cole, were all missing. It was a heavily weakened team for such a crucial night. Despite those absences, McLaren still raised eyebrows with his team selection and tactics. He had tinkered with formations regularly at the start of his tenure, before eventually settling on a 4-4-2 that had served him well for the previous 10 games. Yet for this decisive match, he abandoned it, switched to a more cautious 4-1-4-1, with Peter Crouch isolated as the lone striker. And to widespread surprise, he also left out David Beckham on the bench and dropped Paul Robinson, England's number 1 for 3 years, in favour of 22-year-old Scott Carlson for his competitive debut. The game could not have started any worse. Just 8 minutes in
the centre, Panchar will shoot from here. Oh, it's gone right through!
that slipped horribly under the body of Scott Carlson. 14 minutes in, and Eduardo played Olic in, and it was 2-0.
It's gone in! And is the flag up? The flag is not up!
McLaren reacted at the break. David Beckham and Jermaine Defoe were on, and switching to a 4-4-2. And it looked like the subs would save the day. Jermaine Defoe winning a penalty, and Frank Lampard converting.
Scores! England have new hope!
Then Beckham, once again, with a superb cross, and Crouch.
In the centre, Crouch, surely, yes! Peter Crouch has done it for England!
And for a brief moment, qualification was back in England's hands. Until it wasn't.
Petric again. Oh, he scored! Extraordinary! It's the substitute Petric!
And just like that, it was over.
Are out of the European Championships.
England had failed to qualify for the 2008 Euros. First time they had missed a major tournament since '94.
The last time England lost a competitive game here at Wembley, Kevin Keegan resigned. Steve McLaren, days are numbered, do you think?
Probably. I don't think he'll resign. I think he'll have to be asked to leave rather than resign. I think the pressure will be just unbelievable for him to stay on now, and no, it wouldn't surprise me if the FA were to end his term.
It wasn't just the defeat; it was the manner of the defeat.
Yep.
They played like right from when they lost the first goal, they played like a team of strangers.
Steve McLaren was sacked the following day. The newspapers were merciless, and the image that would define his entire reign, McLaren on the touchline in the pouring rain, sheltering on a large umbrella, became the perfect, painful symbol of a campaign that had slowly and sadly unravelled. The 14th of December 2007, Fabio Capello was announced as England's new manager. With Sven and Steve McLaren, who were deemed too lax, informal and too nice, the FA did a 360 and went for a strict disciplinarian, as the players were perceived to have too much power. Capello had come with an impressive CV in club football: AC Milan, Roma, Juve and Real Madrid. But Capello's English was limited. He also arrived with his own Italian backroom staff, and the rules soon followed. No butter or ketchup at meal times, players to wear suits to team meetings. The message was clear. The players were no longer running the show. Capello was. He spent 9 months using friendlies to impose his methods. And John Terry was made permanent captain. and for the start of the qualifying, the 2010 World Cup brought an immediate chance for revenge, as Croatia were in the same group, and in Zagreb, and England delivered in style, thrashing Croatia 4-1 with a memorable hat-trick from teenage star Theo Walcott.
Walcott on the move, on a hat-trick. Theo Walcott to round off a goal.
The next test would be at home against Ukraine, and Terry would score with 5 minutes to remain to give England the win. The impressive wins were mounting as Croatia came to Wembley, and England produced an even better result, with Lampard and Gerrard taking it in turns to score a brace each. And Rooney finishing off, England had qualified comfortably the South African World Cup. But just like always with England, the off-field problems began before the tournament had even started. Just months before South Africa, John Terry was stripped of the captaincy after it emerged he had allegedly had an affair with Wayne Bridges' ex-girlfriend. The story dominated the back pages for weeks. Rio Ferdinand took the armband, but he suffered a serious injury and was ruled out just before the tournament. So Steven Gerrard was handed the captaincy. For Rooney, going into the World Cup, he was in fine form, as he had his best goal-scoring season, and the English press suggested England were in an easy group. For Capello, he had decisions to make, as he was undecided who would start in goal. David James, Joe Hart and Robert Green in the squad, and the first game would be against United States, and Capello would start with Robert Green, and Gerrard would get England off to a perfect start.
Just beyond him, but it will come for Heskey, and here's Steven Gerrard, and England take the lead!
However, Capello's decision will come back to bite him.
Stars of the Confederations Cup, testing Green again, oh! What an error! What an...
And England were poor and had nothing in the second half, and the game ended 1-1. And in the second game against Algeria, Capello would change goalkeepers, but the game was dire, 0-0.
Cape Town, another poor performance from England.
And be best remembered for Rooney's frustration.
Nice to see your home fans booing you. That's what Borough supporters.
The newspapers tore into Rooney the next day, and the team, as the performances were deemed shameful. England would win the last game 1-0, and did just enough and finished second in the group, which would mean they'll face a tougher draw in the second round against Germany. The impressive performances in qualifying already felt like a distant memory. England had been poor throughout the group stage, and any hope that they might improve once the knockout rounds began was fading fast. It's true that knockout football can often bring the best out of teams. After all, reigning champions Italy and strong favourites France had both been eliminated in the group stage, so getting out of the group is no small task. But in England's case, the rhythm simply wasn't there, and against Germany, they started slowly and found themselves 2-0 down.
The second was lethal.
Upson pulled one back.
Gerrard in now, Hodgson! 2-1! Lampard! Brilliant! It was in now! That surely crossed the line! It's not been given! Oh, it's so far in!
And England went in half-time trailing 2-1, when really they should have been level. And in the second half, they chased the equaliser, but Germany countered ruthlessly and put England out their misery, running out 4-1 winners.
Are going home, and they're going home on the end of the England team's heaviest defeat in World Cup finals history.
England were poor in the whole World Cup, although Capello was resolute, and little things that could have gone England's way. And England did what England do, qualify with ease for the 2012 Euros. However, in February, Capello would resign, as the FA went over his head and stripped John Terry of the captaincy, following alleged racial abuse directed at Rio Ferdinand's brother, Anton, in a match against QPR. Capello felt the decision should have been his to take. After Capello's resignation, there was a notable sense of relief around the England camp. The strict, authoritarian Italian experiment had finally come to an end. Most fans wanted Harry Redknapp, the charismatic, attacking football man who was still riding high at Tottenham. But the FA, still scarred by the clashes and power struggles of the Capello years, chose to play it safe. They went for Roy Hodgson. Hodgson arrived as the ultimate safe pair of hands, a well-travelled, experienced coach who had earned respect across Europe. He had taken Switzerland from 83rd in the world rankings all the way up to 3rd and guided them to the 94 World Cup and Euro 96, and worked at Inter Milan in the 90s and done impressive jobs at West Brom and Fulham, most notably taking Fulham all the way to the Europa League final in 2010. However, his short and difficult 6-month spell at Liverpool had raised questions. It hinted that perhaps he lacked the final bit of stature and intensity required for one of the biggest and most demanding jobs in world football. The Euro 2012 will be held in Poland and Ukraine, and it will be Hodgson's first test, but it was widely reported in the build-up that expectations were much lower than usual. The so-called golden generation was coming to an end, and the squad was hit by injuries, and Hodgson only had a matter of weeks to prepare the team. England's first game was against France, a side still recovering from their own disastrous 2010 World Cup, and the match was poor and ended with a 1-1 draw. Afterwards, Scott Parker was honest. "I don't know if you can win tournaments playing like that, but it was a good foundation for us." Next up was Sweden. In a pulsating game, England took the lead through Carroll.
And it's Carroll! What a goal!
But then found themselves 2-1 down.
Through he can! They lead!
Before Theo Walcott, introduced from the bench at half-time, changed the game, scoring an equaliser and creating the winner.
There's the clip and across! Welbeck! England lead again!
And England won 3-2 in a thrilling comeback. The returning Wayne Rooney headed England into the quarter-finals with a 1-0 win over co-hosts Ukraine. It was a scrappy game marred by a controversial disallowed goal for Ukraine. And in the last 8, England faced Italy. They put in a disciplined defensive performance for most of the game. Capello produced a masterclass in midfield. And after a 0-0 draw, it went to penalties, and England were knocked out once again on spot kicks.
Diamante and Italy are in the semi-finals.
However, many felt England had probably gone as far as could be expected. Captain Steven Gerrard summed up the mood. "We're all hurt and disappointed, but everyone's given their best. It's a better team than 2 years ago, and I think we've performed to a better level than in previous tournaments." Hodgson now had time to prepare his team, and he had an impressive run, with England qualifying for the World Cup in Brazil in 2014, and they even beat Brazil at Wembley in a strong friendly.
And Frank Lampard doing what Frank Lampard does, scoring from midfield.
For years, the Three Lions had relied on the golden generation for far too long. The players who'd followed largely failed to reach those heights. Now a fresh, younger group had emerged. It looked like the start of a new chapter. Different names, different energy. Many people generally felt this could be the beginning of something exciting. Even if, in hindsight, several of these players would not fully deliver on their early promise. The issue, however, was timing. Most of them were still developing, and for quite a few, the 2014 World Cup had come probably too soon. The press had already set expectations low. Just getting out the group would be considered a success. Yet on the 12th of May, Hodgson declared, "I believe this squad can win the World Cup." At 28, Wayne Rooney remained the focal point and still the main man, but the reality was sobering. Since his explosive breakout at the Euro 2004, he had gone 2 World Cups without scoring. The defining tournament moment England were waiting for had never arrived. And the group they were drawn into? Group of death. Italy, who had knocked them out at Euro 2012, and Uruguay, semi-finalists from the previous World Cup, and a dangerous Costa Rica side with nothing to lose. And for the opening game, it was Italy once again. This time, though, the performance was much better than 2 years earlier at the Euros. But England will find themselves 1-0 down. Before Sturridge levelled almost immediately after. And Balotelli headed the winner. Now, England lost 2-1, but it was a promising display that gave them real confidence heading into the next match. This was the must-not-lose game. They faced a familiar foe in Luis Suarez, a Liverpool striker in red-hot form, and Suarez scored early for Uruguay.
In towards Suarez! It just had to be Luis Suarez.
But Rooney levelled it with his first ever World Cup goal. And England went looking for a winner. And they were caught. A long ball from the keeper, a glancing flick on from Gerrard. And Suarez pounced to score the winner.
Suarez is 2-1. Down by Luis Suarez, just as they were down by Mario Balotelli on Saturday night. The devil they know.
What went wrong, Glenn?
Well, I think we've been beaten by a world-class finisher. I mean, at the other end, we've got ourselves in both games, Italy and this game, in situations where if we had a finisher like that, we've won both games. We had hold of the game and we lose the game off a schoolboy error. That is something, a long punt from a goalkeeper in this day and age, you just shouldn't be giving goals
Any day and
like
age.
And with confirmation of England's elimination before the Costa Rica game, goalless draw for the final group game. 1 point, bottom of the group. England's worst World Cup performance since 1958. Despite the early exit, Roy Hodgson refused to resign, and the FA continued to back him. Former England winger Chris Waddle didn't hold back with his verdict. The Premier League is a great advert for our football, but it does our national team no good whatsoever. With Hodgson retained as manager, England had a strong qualifying campaign, winning all 10 of their matches. They topped the group comfortably, but England had performed well in qualifiers for the last 4 major tournaments. But as fans knew, results didn't always translate to success in the actual tournament. And the Euro 2016 also expanded from 16 to 24 teams, and after low expectation from recent tournaments, belief around the England squad had risen again. Young players like Sterling and Wilshere gained valuable experience at the World Cup 2014 in Brazil, alongside exciting new talents such as Dele Alli. One of the big issues in the previous tournament had been a lack of firepower up front. That looked to have finally changed, with Harry Kane scoring 25 league goals and Jamie Vardy's 24, and with Vardy coming off the back of winning the Premier League with Leicester City. This combination gave England a real goal threat. Wayne Rooney had taken the captain's armband since the last World Cup, and Hodgson would deploy him in midfield in a 4-3-3 with Kane as the lone striker. And England were impressive in their first game, but conceded late and drew 1-1 with Russia. The team remained unchanged for the second match against Wales. Gareth Bale scored first.
And strike brilliantly! Gareth Bale with a moment of absolute magic!
Hodgson, fearing another early group exit, made key changes at half-time, bringing on Vardy and Sturridge.
Cahill couldn't get off the floor! Vardy's there! England are level! Vardy's in the area, Dele Alli, Daniel Sturridge! Sturridge scores!
And the super subs worked for Hodgson. But England drew the final group game with a changed team and finished second in the group. But Lady Luck appeared to be on England's side, as the media portrayed their round of 16 opponent, Iceland, as a favourable matchup. And the game started well, and this should have been straightforward, but it became England's darkest hour.
It's headed on and a chance for Alisson. Sigurdsson has equalised.
No problem. Start again. Keep dominating. Keep getting pressure on the Iceland back four. The only thing that they have got is the big boy up front, Sigurdsson, who really, Sigthorsson.
Oh my word.
Oh.
Talk us through that, Steve. I think we know what's happened, but talk us through it.
There's going to be a stain on the reputation of all the England players involved here tonight as they face an early exit from another tournament. Roy Hodgson's position is surely untenable. It's difficult to think of anything quite as humbling as this defeat, certainly in living memory, but this is the most abject failure that I can recall.
Well, that was the worst performance I've ever seen from an England team, ever.
I agree with everything Alan just said there, but embarrassing.
Roy Hodgson resigned immediately after the Iceland defeat, The last 10 years had been a slow decline for England, and this felt like rock bottom. Fan apathy had sunk to new depths, and the FA's previous three managers in Steve McLaren, Fabio Capello and Roy Hodgson had all been seen as failures. The fans were losing belief and interest, and the Football Association knew they needed to rebuild trust and lift the nation. They considered experienced coach Arsene Wenger, while Gareth Southgate had been coaching the England under-21 team for 3 years. However, Southgate's senior management experience was very limited, and the fans' favourite was Sam Allardyce, a big, no-nonsense manager known for keeping struggling clubs in the Premier League. Just weeks earlier, he had saved Sunderland from relegation, and many saw him as the man to bring results, even if his style of football was often criticised as defensive and ugly. Allardyce was appointed England manager in July 2016. He'd won his first game, a 1-0 win against Slovakia. Then just 22 days later came one of the most embarrassing moments in English football history. Newspapers revealed that Allardyce had been caught in a secret undercover sting operation by the Daily Telegraph. He was filmed discussing ways to get around the FA rules on third-party ownership of players, in exchange for a deal of £400,000, with what turned out to be a fake company. The next day, the FA acted quickly, and Allardyce left his position by mutual consent. Brought down by his own greed, Sam Allardyce was England manager for just 67 days and one match. The FA turned to Gareth Southgate as temporary manager. Very few realised it at the time, but it would prove to be a decision that would change the course of the England national team. The former England defender, still remembered by many for missing that penalty in Euro 96, began steadily as interim manager with 2 wins and 2 draws, capped by a morale-boosting victory over Scotland. The FA were impressed by what they saw and convinced the hesitant Southgate he was the right man for the job. He signed a 4-year deal in late 2016. Qualifying for the 2018 World Cup went smoothly, but expectations remained low. England was still viewed as a side in transition, and the FA themselves described the tournament as a staging post in the team's development, even confirming Southgate would remain in charge regardless of the result in Russia. Many wondered how far this England side could realistically go. But for Southgate, simply leading his country at a World Cup already meant everything. I'm a very proud Englishman, and I said it before, that to play for my country was my only goal as a kid. So now to be managing and leading my country to a World Cup is an extra special moment. England were drawn against Belgium, Tunisia and Panama. Southgate deployed a 3-5-2 system with Harry Kane and Raheem Sterling leading the line. And Harry Kane, England's youngest World Cup captain, leading in terms of age and caps, the least experienced England World Cup team. The opening match against Tunisia looked to be slipping away after Kane's early goal was cancelled out by a controversial penalty. But deep in stoppage time, Kane struck again.
And it is in from Harry Kane again!
Just England's 5th win in their 26 opening matches at major tournaments. Next game, Panama, who was swept aside. Kane scored a hat-trick and secured qualification for the knockout stages. With both sides already through, England and Belgium rested several key players in the final group game. Belgium won 1-0, and Southgate's side finished second in the group. That set up a last 16 clash with Colombia.
England's first World Cup knockout game for 8 years.
In a scrappy and edgy game, tensions were boiling over. But England won a penalty.
He's given a penalty. Something had to happen. Yellow card shown. Harry Kane. Bang! Hit first time. Oh, it's a blinder. What a save! Headed down. Oh, it's in! Yerry Mina has equalised. England got so close.
The game level after 120 minutes. It went to penalties. England had finally broken their penalty curse, winning their first ever World Cup shootout. The quarter-final against Sweden followed, and goals from Maguire and Dele Alli secured a 2-0 victory, and suddenly, against almost every expectation, England were in a World Cup semi-final. Gareth Southgate had managed to build a genuine togetherness between the players, the fans and the media. But now England faced the Croatia side with a golden generation of their own. Mario Mandzukic leading the line, Ivan Perisic out wide, and a midfield anchored by Rakitic, Brozovic and the legendary Luka Modric. This was to be England's toughest test yet England believed, and the match began perfectly.
4 white shirts in the wall. It's Kieran Trippier. It's in! It's a Harry Kane, no flag. Oh, what a chance! Kane still!
But as the second half wore on, Croatia began to take control. England retreated deeper and deeper, and Southgate was left with a difficult decision: to shift momentum or to trust the players to hold firm. He chose to trust them, and England eventually paid the price.
Vasalka. Crossed it to Perisic! Croatia equalise! Ivan Perisic! Walker improvised a clearance. Kept alive by Perisic. Chance here, it's in! Mario Mandzukic may just have won this semi-final for Croatia. 2018 is Croatia's year to step up onto world football's centre stage. They will play France for the World Cup here on Sunday. But England are contenders again. Gareth Southgate's team have restored the national pride in the national team. They've given us a wonderful ride.
After the World Cup, England's progress continued. In the first Nation League campaign, Southgate's side recorded impressive victories over Spain and Croatia, eventually reaching the semi-finals before losing to the Netherlands. Then came a long delay. Euro 2020 was pushed back by a year due to the global COVID-19 pandemic. But by the time the tournament finally arrived, England looked stronger than ever. Harry Kane developed into one of the world's best strikers. Kyle Walker, John Stones and Raheem Sterling enjoyed success under Pep at Man City, while a new young golden generation was rapidly emerging. Marcus Rashford at 23, Rice at 22, Foden at 21, Saka 19 and Jude Bellingham just 17. And England opened the tournament against Croatia, the side that ended their World Cup dream 3 years earlier.
Then 2, then plays it into Sterling!
Frustrating and physical goalless draw against Scotland followed, before Sterling once again secured a victory against Czech Republic to send England into the knockout stages. 3 games in, England were unbeaten, and belief across the country was beginning to grow once again.
In the saga of this great international fixture. Shaw across for Sterling! Grealish in! In comes the captain! It's finally happened! Found the net. There's Maguire.
Michael Damsgaard. Oh, it's a wonderful goal. Sterling is there. He's not leaving one tonight. Saved, back in. Yes, yes, yes. They've done it. They've only gone and done it. 55 years since England last reached a major final. Gareth Southgate will bring England back here on Sunday to face Italy in the final of the European Championships.
For the first time in 55 years, England stood on the edge of history, fueled of a mixture of intense hope and the constant fear of a historic heartbreak. England v Italy at Wembley. And England made the perfect start.
Sterling making a dart. Walker in there too. Might come to Luke Shaw! Chiesa's got away. Wriggling to the edge of the box. And it's saved by Donnarumma. It's Jorginho. It's Pickford's save. And it's saved. And Italy are the European champions.
The Euro 2000 campaign ended in heartbreaking fashion, losing to Italy on penalties in their first major final since 1966. Yet despite the achievement, the night itself was overshadowed by crowd trouble, security breaches and scenes of disorder outside Wembley. For Gareth Southgate, the defeat also brought new questions. In 2018, England's run to the World Cup semi-final had felt like an unexpected progress under a young manager still learning at the highest level. But against Italy, many felt England had let a historic opportunity slip away. Luke Shaw's early goal had Wembley in dreamland, but as the match wore on, England retreated deeper and deeper while Italy slowly took control. In Russia, 3 years earlier, Southgate's caution against Croatia had been understandable, from a young manager learning on the biggest stage. But this time, many felt he had failed to learn from it. His decision to introduce Marcus Rashford and Jadon Sancho moments before the penalty shootout was heavily scrutinised as both missed from the spot, and there was also criticism over asking 19-year-old Saka to take England's decisive penalty under immense pressure. Southgate accepted the responsibility afterwards. My decision to give Bukayo that penalty. That's totally my responsibility. Southgate had transformed the feeling around England and rebuilt the connection between the team and the nation. But after the defeat to Italy, the honeymoon period appeared to be over. The optimism and unity still remain, but for the first time, serious doubts have begun to emerge over whether Southgate had the tactical instinct to carry England all the way. But England responded by qualifying for the 2022 World Cup with ease, scoring 39 goals, finishing unbeaten at the top of their group. The tournament in Qatar would be unlike any before it, staged in November and December in the middle of the European season. England drawn against Iran, the United States and Wales, and Southgate's side's opening game against Iran, where Jude Bellingham announced himself on the World Cup stage.
Shaw. And it's in from Bellingham. What a moment.
Before Saka continued his rapid rise to make it 2-0.
He gets it down to Saka.
England would eventually run out 6-2 winners. The second match against the United States proved a frustrating and a lifeless, goalless draw, but England responded comfortably in their final group game, beating Wales 3-0 to send England into the knockout stages.
Very good, very, very good. And England win to see them top the group. And a date with Senegal on Sunday awaits.
And with the African champions, Senegal, England made light work of it. Jude Bellingham was sensational in the first half, assisting Henderson for the opener, then involved in Harry Kane's first goal of the tournament.
The centre, Kane's got a big chance here now. It's Harry Kane and England lead 2-0.
And Saka finished off the African champions and booked England's place in the quarter-finals.
Does there become a time where you have to stop saying we've seen the future of a team and say we've seen the present of a team? I'm thinking about, in particular, Foden and Bellingham, but a little bit of Saka in there as well.
Yeah, well, we spoke about these players before the game, and what they're doing is producing. You know, it is about what you do today, the games. You have France coming up the next few days, but that's where the players deserve credit. They're producing week in, week out. That's where they're top players. Will it be fearful of France? Absolutely not. Go and take them on, show some courage, bravery, because that's what they've been doing for the last few years. And all credit to them.
There, England would face France, the reigning world champions and tournament favourites. Yet England had arrived in the quarter-finals as the tournament's top goalscorers, and carrying real belief that this generation can finally go all the way. France lined up in Olivier Giroud up front in their 4-2-3-1, Griezmann pulling the strings and Mbappe roaming from the left. And Southgate kept faith with his 4-3-3 system, with Kyle Walker tasked with stopping the tournament's most dangerous player, Kylian Mbappe. And against the world champions, England will go toe-to-toe with them. And England started brightly, with Harry Kane forcing an early save from Hugo Lloris. But France struck first. And in the second half, England fought their way back into the match, and Kane converted from the penalty spot. Maguire came agonisingly close, crashing a header against the post in the 78th minute. England were handed one final opportunity after winning a second penalty.
Faces Hugo Lloris from the penalty spot. He's missed it. England's World Cup is over.
I just think it's a huge opportunity missed over the last 2 or 3 tournaments. I think it's been outstanding, it really has, and yeah, I mean, I think most people in this country would want Gareth Southgate and this team to continue and feel like it could improve, but even though I'm saying what a great job Gareth's done, I still think in those vital moments we can still, can we improve, can we get the game management right, because it's so vital. The thing for me is, the last 2 tournaments, it's almost that England have been gallant losers, and we've been so sort of proud of them, and they've just missed out. I think this group of players and manager now should be angry in some ways, and that's almost like a compliment, because they're too good now to, you know, accept just losing in a good fashion and say how unlucky they were, and let's look to the next tournament. And yeah, that's great, but that game last night was there to be won, and that's why I think the manager and players, how great they've been, they should wake up this morning and be proud of what they've done, but also be really disappointed because it was there for them.
It's Kane from the penalty spot again. And there is his immortal moment.
Harry Kane's 54th goal for England, and he is England's all-time record goal scorer.
With Harry Kane becoming England's all-time record goal scorer and England beating Italy home and away to top their qualifying group for the Euro 2024, England looked in strong shape. Kane's move to Bayern Munich saw him finish as Europe's top goalscorer and claim the Golden Shoe, while Phil Foden arrived after winning the PFA Player of the Year award, and Jude Bellingham's sensational first season at Real Madrid had also turned him into one of the world's biggest stars in world football. It felt like England arrived at a tournament with many of their biggest stars peaking at the same time. England travelled to Germany as one of the favourites, and England's first game against Serbia was a poor game. Jude Bellingham made his mark.
Saka does get it across and it's headed in by Bellingham.
The next two games were even more frustrating. A 1-1 draw against Denmark followed by a dire 0-0 against Slovenia. England had qualified for the knockout stage, but the football was painful to watch. Gareth Southgate's highly defensive, safety-first tactics left fans bored and angry. And after the Slovenia game, England were loudly booed off the pitch by their own supporters. Media pundits were equally damning. Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer publicly described the performances as not very good and woeful. And in the round of 16 against Slovakia, Slovakia led 1-0 deep into stoppage time. And England was seconds away from crashing out until Jude Bellingham produced a stunning 95th minute overhead kick that changed everything.
Here's the overhead kick from Bellingham! Yes! Hit it. Back across the face of goal. Kane is there! Sometimes things just change in the blink of an eye! Hello everyone and welcome to the Dusseldorf Arena. Saka having a go! England go through! Harry Kane, it's 1-1. Here's Watkins, right at the end, trying to turn and fire in, and only Watkins has in the final minute of the semi-final. That's exactly what it's given them. England extinguish the Dutch flame in Dortmund, and Gareth Southgate's men reach the first final of a major tournament on foreign soil.
England's route to the final had been chaotic, a strange, polarised mix of fan frustration over the team's cautious style of play, followed by moments of pure late drama. England was seconds away from elimination against Slovakia before Bellingham's stunning 95th minute overhead kick rescued them. They survived Switzerland on penalties. Then came Ollie Watkins' dramatic late winner against the Netherlands. As criticism grew louder back home, the squad developed an us against the world mentality, using the backlash as fuel. But despite the turbulence, England had reached another final, and waiting for them was Spain, a standout team of the tournament.
con Nico. Con la pelota atrás, tira
Saka gets it through and Bellingham tries to tee up Palmer. Oh yes! Ice cold precision from Palmer.
Pero Oyarzabal, Cucurella que intenta llegar, Oyarzabal.
That Stones headed off the line and it's wide. For England, the interminable wait goes on.
Unlike the heartbreak of Wembley 3 years earlier, this defeat felt different. There was less outrage, less disbelief. Most accepted that Spain had simply been the better side. 2 days later, Gareth Southgate stepped down as England manager, and with Southgate's departure, a defining chapter of modern England football came to an end. The FA turned to Thomas Tuchel, only the third foreign manager in England's history, and England qualified for the 2026 World Cup. Now, 60 years on from Bobby Moore lifting the trophy in 1966, England prepare for another World Cup carrying the weight of history once again. Because for all the heartbreak and all the years of hurt, England fans still tell themselves, I know that was then, but it could be again.